Hi everyone, Sharon here with another episode of Mac Seniors on the Road. A while back, I met through a new friend a 94-year-old veteran of World War II. His name is Andy Musolimus, and while he's probably best known for his bar in Oakland called King's X, where he was instrumental in the incubation and growth of fantasy football, what you might not know is that he was part of an elite group of Greek American soldiers who were part of the Office of Strategic Services, or the OSS, which later became the CIA. Then there's my friend Stan Bieber, who served as a Marine on the island of Bougainville and also again during the Korean War. Stan went on to become a videographer and spent many hours volunteering his time videotaping veterans talking about their experiences during the war. So from the time I met Andy, I wanted to get him and Stan together. So finally, actually on Veterans Day, me and my friend Joan, who had introduced me to Andy in the first place, traveled to Pleasanton, where Stan lives, and my husband had made a chicken paprikash for us to have lunch, and we sat down around Stan's table, and they really had a good time swapping stories and entertaining us women as well. And I really, really enjoyed the day. Now let's just listen in to their conversation.
You know, we were frustrated, all of us, not only me, my whole group, couldn't get any medals.
Yeah.
And when our records were released by the CIA finally, 1986, I tried like hell I even got a hold of the Chief of Staff was General Henry Shelton, Chief of Staff, the United States Armed Forces.
Uh-huh.
I briefly met him at Fort Bragg when we had a reunion there, and he was in Special Forces. He was the head of Special Forces. I wrote him a letter telling him our problem. I wrote him a letter, and he said the response was vanilla. He says, you got to contact your congressperson, and they'll probably get it for you. Well, you know my congressperson is?
Barbara Lee.
Barbara Lee. Barbara Lee was the only one that voted against the Iraq War and the Afghanistan War. And I thought, oh my God. I knew Barbara Lee when she used to come to my restaurant.
Really?
Yeah, the Democrats would meet there every other Wednesday. And they would meet there for lunch. So, I knew her from there. She was a young girl. She was Congressman Dellum's secretary. But, she didn't know.
I've seen her on television a lot.
Huh?
I've seen her on television.
Yeah, well, she didn't really know me when I contacted her. I think, what the hell, I'll take a shot. 15 days after I sent her all my information, I got a call from her Oakland office, and unlike Nick when he got his, I'll tell you about Nick later, but they had they had this big glass. I couldn't even talk to anybody, and they had a bag, a brown bag, and they handed it to me. And the brown bag had all these medals right
all
here.
the medals, yeah.
In a brown bag. So I couldn't believe it. I looked at this thing and I got every medal every medal. I got my.
It looks like it's all there.
And this is the combat infantry badge.
Yeah.
This is the European with 4 stars. Southern China, Burma, India.
Oh, okay.
For those three, should be 3 star. This is my Bronze Star medal. I told you I won.
Yeah, right.
And then our group won the Presidential Union Citation.
Right.
And then this is the American medal. No, there's the American medal here. I don't know what the hell that is. And then this is the British parachute wings. And this is the Chinese parachute
Oh,
wing.
really? Uh-huh.
And this is me when I was in China.
When you were in China, okay.
And this is the paratroop here, by
Right.
American paratroop.
Okay.
So I got them.
You have an Asiatic?
Yeah, right here.
Was Asiatic?
This one here. This is the Asiatic,
Okay.
which includes the China, Burma, India,
Okay,
and that's a European.
okay.
So, and this is the Chinese. When we trained the Chinese, I got that.
Yeah.
And this is the only kind of a patch we had, and I didn't even know we had that.
Well, when you were, with the outfit you were in, you were,
Well, they should have given us a map patch. They
you were,
made a mistake and didn't even give us a name.
I know,
The only constant we had was the Greek American Operational Group,
right.
and that's what we all were, the ethnic operational groups. So when I told Nick, remember Joan? I told Nick about how I got my medals. So he contacts George Miller, Congressman. Remember Congressman Miller here out here?
It sounds familiar.
Contra Costa.
Costa, Miller.
And Congressman Miller, unlike Barbara, at least Barbara got my medals, but Congressman Miller invited his Jones family and a couple of us veterans, and he had a kind of a thing at his office when he gave Nick his medals.
Oh, okay. Okay.
You remember that day, don't you?
I do, yeah.
Yeah. So we had an interesting time. We couldn't get our medals. I couldn't go to the VA because they didn't have records. They said because the Americans did not recognize the Balkans as being an American battlefield.
Battlefield. Yeah.
So we didn't get any. We didn't get any. Let me tell you, I got 2 battle stars for the Rome Arno battle and the Apennines battle in Italy. You know why
Apennines, yeah, right.
You know
yeah.
why I got them? You know why?
No, how's that?
Because I happened to be in the neighborhood.
Oh, really?
I mean, and I couldn't get a battle star for all the islands that we should have got a battle star for every one of these islands we invaded. We invaded 5 or 6, 7 islands. I can't remember.
Yeah.
There was no record. No record.
Well, I can understand that. I can, as far as I'm concerned,
Imagine getting 2 battle stars for something that I didn't even do.
uh
And that's typical. And another thing.
Do you go to the VA a lot?
Huh?
Do you go to the VA?
Oh, I go to VA all the time now. No, it's ever since I got the VA finally saw my record and what happened. I had a guy that worked with me.
Do you work on your ears? Do they work on your ears?
Huh?
Have they worked on your ears?
Oh, they would give me everything. Everything. I got 100% now. I got a tremendous stipend, but because they knew they were screwed up.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't give me anything until 1990 something. Until I got those medals from Barbara Lee. And they figured, geez, really upsetting to be able to be in a war and then not be recognized.
Well, I understand that, but you were a volunteer also. Is that correct?
Well, it has nothing to do with that, being the volunteer. The fact that I was an American.
Yeah, I understand that
Group.
part.
I
Of it.
was
Yeah, I
the-
understand that part.
I was the Office of Strategic Services,
Well, it seems.
which is under General Donovan.
Yeah, it would seem to me though that the officers in charge.
Huh?
It seems to me that the officers in charge should be able to communicate with the armed forces that you people were there and doing a job on the island.
I don't know what happened. They had no record. I'd go to the ABA, and they looked like, we don't have any records, you guys, because we were under the British. Everything we did was, look at my parachute wings. They're British. We went to parachute school under the British. I never jumped with an American parachute, always a British. And later we jumped with the Chinese.
How many feet did you jump out of?
How many feet?
Feet. When you jumped out of the airplane, what was the altitude of the aircraft?
Well,
Roughly, just on a rough.
we had a jump between 500 and 600 feet,
Okay,
but that was they want so we can get down as quick as we can.
right, gotcha.
Well, we jumped in Greece. It was ugly. We came in at nighttime, and we had to come in at night and jump on the plateau.
Uh-huh.
And we're in a C-47, and all these mountains. So we had there was 12 of us in the plane, 4 on each stick, 4 in each stick.
What do you mean each stick?
Each time we jumped with 4 guys. We couldn't go any more because we were jumping on the plateau. If we jumped with 6 or 7, we would go in the valley where the Germans were. We had to jump on the plateau
Oh, okay.
because the Germans drowned the valley.
Okay,
And the Germans didn't want to come up in the mountains and made it too tough because the guerrillas. But we had the mountains on both sides. The plane would come down. First of all, the pilots didn't want to do that. They wanted to drop all 12 of us at the same time. And my commanding officer was Bob Eichler. He was our group commander. He told the pilots, look, you either drop 4 at a time or we're going back to Italy.
Okay.
And I'm going to have to make sure I court-martial you guys. Well,
so what you're saying is that they would fly over an area that you need to drop. They'd only drop 4 people,
That's it.
and then they come around again, and then they drop 4 more.
Here's the mountains.
Yeah, I understand that part
They
of
got to
it.
come down, drop 4, and then go back up.
Yeah,
Now, these pilots didn't want to do that. They wanted to drop all 12 of us. Well, if dropped 12, we ended up in the German
in the
camp.
German camp.
They would have.
Yeah, right. I got you.
Executed.
I understand that.
So I'm the last guy, again, because I'm the assistant squad leader. I'm the last guy to jump, last stick. So the first 4 went out, and then we went back up again and come back down and down. The next 4, then we went back. Was just talk about nerve-wracking, thinking, boy, if the Luftwaffe finds out we're here, we're in trouble. C-47s don't have a shot.
Yeah, right.
So we jumped, all 12 of us ended up on a plateau where we welcomed 3 British officers and the Greek guerrillas. And they took us right out. And that's how we ended up in Greece.
Oh, I see.
It was kind of a frightening call
Yeah,
because, when you got these mountains, you have to come down 500 feet, 400 feet, so we could drop on the plateau.
right.
Because if we got captured, Hitler had an edict, put out an edict, said any Allied commandos captured behind enemy lines,
Yeah.
he ordered their commanding officers to execute them. Well, when these Italian kids landed in northern Italy behind enemy lines, they got turned over to the Germans, and the Germans executed
Really,
all 16 of them.
really.
And there's a town called in Italy, the town of Amaglaia.
You remember that?
That's the town that they were executed in. And years later, I was communicating with the executive officer of the Italians, and he had mentioned what happened, and it really shook him up. But anyway, he calls me. He says, "I understand you're going to have a reunion in Athens." He says, "Why don't you come to Amaglaia?" I says, "It's 2 weeks before I says, "I can't take off that long," but they planted 16 trees in the town of Amaglaia honoring these 16 Italian Americans.
Oh, really?
Yeah, these were sons of Italian immigrants, betrayed by Italians, sons of Italian immigrants, Americans, betrayed by Italians, turned over to the Germans, and Germans executed all 16 of them. Because Hitler had put it on order.
Terrible.
And so we were in Greece for our 6 groups, overall 270 days. And we blew up a lot of stuff. Whoa, you can't believe what our group did. And each time we blow up something, a village would be ravaged by the Germans. But we would, they would tell us in Greek, every time we do that, the Germans come and they do a lot of damage for our village.
Mm-hmm.
And what are you going to do? We were ordered to do it.
Yeah.
But 270 days, not one American was betrayed by the Greeks. I'm very proud about that one.
You remember quite a bit.
Huh?
You remember quite a bit.
Oh yeah, because I got everything. I wrote everything. I got my memoirs ready to be posted, and Joan will tell you, I was the unofficial historian of my group.
Okay.
I took that about. I volunteered it, and I've got everything on paper, all this stuff.
That's good.
And
That's good.
I've spoken at a couple of places, and they've had me speak at my Greek church and a couple other places that tell about all this stuff. I remember everything, of course.
That's good.
It's vivid.
Yeah.
When people tell you I don't remember, that means they didn't. If they don't remember, they probably didn't see any combat. You know that only the National Archives
Yeah.
and Burns documentaries say that only 20% of armed forces saw extensive battle experience in World War II. 1 out of 5 only. The other ones come home. Oh, I was in the war. Well, I know exactly how these
I know what you're
they
saying.
live behind the
I
line.
understand.
They live the life of Riley in Italy, especially. My God, those guys. I remember the 5th Army headquarters, and we had just left the island. The island we were still the island.
Yeah, yeah.
With Vari, and Nick was with us. There's 5 of us, and we couldn't find a place to stay.
Yeah.
And they told us, if you don't find a place to stay by 5 o'clock, we're going to ship you back to your camp. What do you mean? We just left our behind the lines. I said, on this island. I said, you're going to ship us back? Mm-hmm. Well, we can't help it. So we go to an Italian jail, and I told the guy what's going on. I said, look, if we don't stay here, put us in the slammer overnight. Just give us a blanket. What the hell's the difference? Been sleeping on the ground anyway. So we slept in the Italian jail that night, and the next morning we got up and left and went to Rome. This was Naples, by the way. Anyway, I got everything on paper.
That's good.
I got it down.
That's good.
But these people that come home and they say, well, I don't remember, or I don't want to talk about it, but probably didn't see any combat. That's why they don't want to talk about it. I think it's important people know what's happening, especially with our group, our operational, the Italian, the Norwegian group. They had a tough time. One of their planes crashed into a mountain before they dropped them in. And these were Norwegian Americans. And I went to their reunion arena. They invited me. And they talk about Norwegians being cold. Mary and I were treated royally, absolutely royally. They were just happy to have a couple of Greek Americans there.
Then it was time for lunch, and we continued the conversation in there, but the sound quality wasn't as good with all the clinking, so I just want to say these 2 guys are heroes to me, and I appreciate them being willing to let me videotape their conversation. So thanks for watching, and thanks to veterans everywhere. We appreciate your service. Bye-bye.